Alright, so in this video, I'm going to show you something that is slightly different. It's a little technical, but don't worry about it. We will try to use some kind of a visualizer to help us understand the concept of phasing. Now, the best kind of visualizer that you can actually get is called the JO oscilloscope. You can find that on Max for Live's main website. Simply go to Max for Live and search for jo.oscilloscope. Once you find that, all you have to do is just drag and drop it into your track. Now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to use Serum. I want to use Serum because the user interface of Serum is just really good. So it really helps me explain all of these different concepts of phasing and detuning and that sort of stuff. So what I want to teach you here is like a different way of imagining how audio works. Okay. So let me just open this J0 oscilloscope. I'm just going to drag and drop it into my project. I'm just going to go in my downloads folder and drag and drop the JO oscilloscope. Now, how do you read this oscilloscope? First of all, I'm just going to expand it so that it keeps on floating around. And now, whenever I play a note on this synthesizer, it's going to try to visualize a continuous waveform. Now let's see what happens when I change this waveform. I'm going to use something like a sine wave. This kind of a waveform is called as a sine wave. It's a very clean tone. Now phasing is a natural process where multiple frequencies, they start combining and cancelling each other out. Now what happens is, say I had like a similar frequency here. When I superimpose both of these frequencies on top of each other, what happens is they are going to be 100% in phase with each other. What that means is the loudness is going to double because the information is the same on both of these oscillators. So I'll play the note one more time and I'll disable and enable this again. Let's do something better. What I'll do is I'll just write down a note over here. Let me just create a note, a really long note. Let's see what's happening to the signal now. We will also switch to the mixer mode so that we can see the peak here as well. Notice what happens when I introduce an identical signal. The peak is going to increase by 6 decibels. Generally, the way we perceive audio is when the loudness increases by double, we say that the loudness has increased by 6 decibels. Similarly, when the loudness drops half, we say that the loudness has decreased by 6 decibels. So let's see this. I'm going to play this again. You will see one peak and then I'll engage the second one and then you will see this number becoming higher by 6 dBs. And this is the negative scale. So always remember, negative scale, when the number is increasing, it's going to be closer to 0. So earlier it was minus 21. We added 6 decibels to it by adding an identical signal. Now what if this signal was out of phase? Right now it is 100% in phase. That means if I were to superimpose both of these together, it would appear that the signal is identical. I am going to invert this waveform. Now you can see that this and this waveform are slightly opposite. So whenever this part of the frequency is being covered, this oscillator is playing the positive part of the frequency. So the positive part of this waveform and the negative part of this waveform are going to cancel each other out, resulting in a flat signal. This flat signal is called as a DC signal, and it's not going to make any kind of a sound. Let's play it again. I've played it, but it's not making a sound. So what's happening is, when I enable this, you can see here as well that it's cancelling it. No signal. Now I'll remove this. And it's back. So this is the concept of phasing. Whenever the frequency, whenever this waveform is not going to match the other frequencies or the other waveforms, it is going to create some kind of cancellation in the frequency. This results in a weaker sound, which is why sometimes we want to avoid phasing. However, phasing is not always bad. When used in the right context, it could give us some amazing sounds. Let's turn this on. This time I'm going to change the shape slightly and increase the detune on this one as well. So right now I'm not really doing much over here because this is just like one note, but you can see a lot of applications of this. You can make a lead out of this. You can sort of make pads out of this. To make pads, I just need to turn on a bit of reverb effects. Now this is just an example. You don't have to use serum. But you can see how the frequency definitely starts fluctuating, right? Whenever I add this other frequency to this, it's going to start phasing. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the phase. The first example we saw was 100% in phase. The second example we saw was 100% out of phase. That meant the signal was cancelling. Now what happens if the signal is not 100% out of phase, but somewhere in the middle? Let's start over here. Sorry. See, so what's happening is whenever it is becoming more and more out of phase, it's going to start cancelling each other out and sounding weaker. But it's like a really cool effect. See what happens when I automate this effect. Gives you like a really nice fluttery kind of a sound, and you can combine it with like a bunch of other sounds and you'll get even more interesting sounds.